Good evening. Today is January 6th, the third trading day of the year. It's just crazy day today. The Democrats took control of US Senate with winning 2 seats in Georgia. And of course, I was wrong predicting that the Republicans will hold on to at least 1 seat. That didn't happen. It was close, but it doesn't count. And so now we have all the branches, uh, Democratic branches, the president and both palace, House and the Senate. It's going to be very interesting right now, but the market loves it. On top of this, there is insane stuff going on in the Capitol. National Guard deployed, unrest, multiple injuries, multiple shots, people are shot, somebody is dead. There is curfew in DC at 6 p.m. Capitol building on lockdown, Senate and Congress evacuated. Trump supporters broke in. It's mayhem. Police inside. It's National Guard is coming in. Army may be coming in. It's mayhem in DC. CNN calls this as a coup attempt by Trump, which obviously is absurd because Trump has came out and told the supporters to go home. He said no violence. We're the party of law and order. Stop the violence. Go home. It's a mess. He called on Pence to invalidate the electors and send them home, which of course Pence didn't do. So I'm not even sure what Trump really intended by calling this rally on this day. It makes no sense. But anyway, on top of this, we had an FOMC meeting, results, notes rather, released. But market, like Victor keeps saying, likes the progressives. He likes the win. Market was up a lot today, especially Russell. Russell was 2000 was up almost 5%. So the sentiment is still very elevated. S&P 500 made all new time highs again. Again, like you said, it's likely to do, but failed to close at all-time highs. And we had a 90-point run up from the lows of the overnight, but we have sold off 30 points by the end of the day. Of course, Bitcoin is at all new time highs as well at 36,000 plus. And Tesla, of course, always goes up every day, made yet another new time highs after an upgrade. And Musk soon will be the richest person alive. Also, the bonds finally broke out from the range, which we talked about yesterday, and gold sold off. So very exciting day in the markets and outside. Victor, so what do you make of all of it?
What I make is that the news follows the price. And I'm reminded of in the old days, a guru from the spec list was named Mr. E. And he had he read every document and he stayed up until 4 a.m. and he spoke to all the specs and he was very conservative. He was the main contributor to the grunge report. To what do they
Oh,
call
right.
it? And John Markman, who's one of the most dynamic and successful and knows more about technology and also won the Pulitzer Prize. And he was the editor of MSN, which was a very big market source in those days. In fact, I used to work for them with Laurel, and we'd sometimes get 30,000 hits on which, and we were the least active and the least popular contributor. They had one man who always said, "Well, the stocks are." He would say, "You want to say, well, this stock, if you think it's going to go up, if you think it's Lou, he was called Lucent was his favorite. So if you think Lucent is at a high PE, then it's a growth stock, and if it's because it's down 50%, it's a value stock. And say, well, whichever one you want, depending upon whether it's value or growth, it's good or bad. But anyway, Markman always said about Mr. E, even when he's wrong, he helps you. He was wrong a lot of times. And he was a man of, we used to call him Falstaff, but to me, Louis L'Amour once wrote a story called Dr. Yak about a man who was in San Bernardino, and he loved to use big words, and he was like he had digested a dictionary, and he was always spewing it forth. He was very elegant, but eventually he was down on his luck, and he had to sleep in a mattress with three other sailors who were waiting for a ship, and it used to be 25 cents a space on a mattress. And Louis L'Amour saw him give up he sold his elegant shaving kits. He had ivory shaving brush, and eventually it was very sad when you saw Louis L'Amour finally said, look, he said to the guys, if Dr. Yak comes and he wants to use the mattress again, he says, I'll pay the 2 bits. Anyway, Mr. E was halfway between Dr. Yak and Falstaff, but he was very smart, and he was always thinking that there was going to be tremendous inflation and the market was going to go down. He passed away about 5 years ago. I spoke to him the night before he passed away, and he was on his treadmill. He was doing treadmill for about an hour a day. And it's strange, his grandfather was the chief sachem of Tammany Hall and was also the champion handball player who was from Ireland in the world. And anyway, what Markman said about even when Mr. E is wrong, he helps you. And I felt like that yesterday. I mean, we said that bonds were going to have a tremendous crash and that stocks would set a new high. And sure enough, they did, but for the wrong reasons. We thought that the R's were going to take one of the seats, but sure enough, the D's pulled it off. Everybody, the smart people say that Trump ruined himself, and he ruined the election in 100 different ways. He was so
I think it's McConnell who has ruined it, but
well, I don't know.
If McConnell has passed 2,000 checks through, he may have won this election and kept the Senate. By denying the people $2,000, he lost the Senate, and the people will still get $2,000 anyway with the Democrats now. So what did he gain? It was the bad political move, in my opinion, and he gained nothing and lost everything.
Anyway, there was that, but also Trump showed himself to be an extremely sore loser.
Right.
He was pursuing an election overturn, which he had no chance of winning, and he got all the voters in Georgia were very upset with his ineptitude and his aggrandizement and self-adulation, and he just put up a very bad front. He made all the R's look bad, and now that this, as you say, this rally was extremely hurtful to the R's. I mean, we know that the D's would have rioted and protested, and they would have burned, or they would have created arson. But instead of that, we have the R's being uncontrolled, so that
Right.
the idea that the Democrats are in favor of riots and arson has just gone out the window.
Yep.
And I think, but the market was going to do what it did. It had a 100-point range. It covered about 300 points from, if you look at the
Yep.
5-minute prices, it covered as much today as it does in a normal whole year. So there were a tremendous number of opportunities, and sure enough, where did it close? Exactly at the Soji level.
That's right.
37.50. After all that, went up to 37.80. In fact, yeah, it went up to 37.80, went down to 36.80, and then it took a 50-point drop in the last half hour. At 4:15, it was 33. It had been 30. It was 37.33. It had the charts up there. It had been 37.80, but it ended exactly where it was going to end, at 37.50 at the Soji level. And you know what? It wasn't an all-time high. The high was
Right.
the previous high was 37.49, and it closed at 37.48, and then 45 or 46, and it went up 3 points from 4:30 to close, just to make things completely
Right.
unpredictable.
The index made all new time highs, just not closing highs.
Yeah, well, the index has often opens up at a high and then gives back the high. There have been a few days last week where it opened well above the 37.50 level and closed at 36.80 or 36.90. In any case, it's been 5 days since it set a new high, and we know, if you look at it through the survival statistics, that is extraordinarily bullish. So eventually, the market owes us a new high. I think, I don't know when we'll get it, but the market opened way down today, and it jumped up like a rocket, went from 36.90 to
Right.
37.80. Didn't have one drop until I say it was going to drop 30 points at the close, regardless of whether there was rioting or protesting, regardless of
Right. Yes.
whether Pence didn't approve the
to send the electors back or whatever.
The market is all wise, and it's very mysterious, and it always does the unusual. So what did we have today? We had finally, the bonds set a 6-month low.
Right.
They were they closed in the 169 handle. They'd been above that. They'd been above that for 6 months. However, at the beginning of the years, they were 160. So they're still, they had gone up to the 76. They had gone up another 10%. They dropped. They're in a correction, famous correction. However, there's the 10-year rate was above 1% for the first time in 6 months. And a lot of people use the 10-year rate. Apparently that's the rate that banks use for their mortgage rates. I like to use the 30-year rate because there's too much vig in the 10-year market.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're going to speculate, you have to go for it. You can't grind. And in fact, I was saying yesterday that my advice to day traders, my best advice is that don't do it. But if you're going to day trade, you have to hold until the end of the day. But because the high frequency boys are so adept and they have so much infrastructure that they don't want to take the risk of overnight moves. They can make money every day without having to concern themselves with overnight moves where they don't have 100% edge. So if you're going to speculate, you have to speculate and go for it. You have to play an aggressive game. You can't play a passive game. And there was a good example of that today. You had to come in at the open, hold it, and then had to stay with a 50-point decline from there and realized that the Soji level was constructal, was going to hit that level regardless. So you have to have courage. You can't be meek. And so many systems don't work if you try to get 5-6 points out of it. If you try to get a 0.5% on a swing, you look to see what happens if you play it for a swing of a 0.5% up or a 0.5% down, get out either, whichever comes first. You don't make money if you try it that way, but you have to hold until the end of the day if you're going to have the forces in your favor. Anyway, regardless of the fraud allegations, as we've said many times, there were so many things that did the president in. There were so many different things that obviously could have made him the victor that were much more important than Milton Friedman once said. It's very, local politicians are very corrupt, much more so than the federal politicians, although I don't know that's true.
Yeah.
But he said even though that's true, it's much better to have local politicians because at least they're responsive to their local residents and to their
Yes.
congressional district. But any case,
Well, what do you make of Nasdaq being down today, as opposed to the rest of the?
crazy. It was crazy. I mean, you would think that with Biden winning and now tech is going to have, as we've always said, tech is going to
Right.
have easy sailing. They're going to be able to put away all the competition from the small firms and the non-tech firms that don't have an international business that aren't located on the coast, and they're not going to have to worry about suppressing the news anymore. They won't. They're the big benefactors of the progressives. So you would think that they would be exalted by today's results. But as I don't know if you ever uh, heard in Russia of the Spider. He was a very, very popular radio show, and he's always said, what evil lies in the hearts of man, only the spider knows. And he was probably he and the Lone Ranger and Gunsmoke were the three most popular shows on, and I Love Lucy were the four most popular shows on the radio. But what he says, what evil lies in the hearts of the market, and who knows? Only the spider knows. Well, we certainly don't know what's
Right.
part of the market, although we try to give a template. We try to provide some of the fundamentals of what should be considered. But who would have thought that the tech would be down and the Russell, as you say, would be up 5% today?
Right.
It was exactly what you wouldn't think. But who would have thought that finance? We've said that the woke is very contagious. That if 95% of the 4 million federal employees vote contributing to the Democrats, that there's hardly any one of them that is a loyalist of the Republicans. And I claim that part of the reason that the president lost, in addition to the 7 or 8 other things that we've said, especially the hold down of the stimulus bill and the suppression of the Hunter Biden news and the the refusal to allow the vaccine to be announced before the election. I say one of the reasons he lost was because of Jay Powell, a man who knows nothing about. For him to be the chairman of the Fed was an absolute disaster, and eventually it because he wasn't a person with a grounding in economics, who was more, he had made some money in venture capital when he was a lawyer. He worked for my old partner's law firm in fact, or they had business dealings. But he announced that the economy is very weak at a very important stage in the election fight. And when he announced that the economy is very weak and that we needed um, Congress to pass a tremendous stimulus bill, it hurt the president because he was saying, you know, the economy is very strong. We're coming back more than ever before. And so, sure enough, for now, he said, not only is the economy weak, but we have to keep interest rates at a extremely low level, and we will do so for 3 years. Of course, that's proved wrong. Today was the end of modern monetary theory, the idea that the government can spend as much money as they want, replacing the actions of private citizens, the broken window fallacy, that was going to, that was so that we could spend as much money as we wanted, but we can't. It's, eventually the market said, well, look, there's going to be another $2 trillion spent to bail out all those whose votes we want.
Well, I think it's just the beginning of the modern monetary theory, actually. With the Democrats coming to power, what stops them from passing universal basic income altogether? I mean, 2000
Well,
stimulus.
the basic monetary theory, modern monetary theory is that the government can spend as much money as they want. That part is true, but that it's not going to affect interest rates. And it certainly is going to affect interest rates. But
The Fed keeps buying them, but if the Fed keeps buying the bonds,
no, eventually it will lead to hyperinflation. And that's what happened. That's what the market finally realized today. We had a 2-point decline in bonds, about
right,
the most that it's declined in 3 or 4 months. But I say, Chance Gardner, I call him, because he finally said, oh, well, the economy is very strong now. And the Fed minutes said,
minutes,
you
right?
know, it's going very well. And that to me was much more of a reason for the market to immediately, I mean, normally it goes very up when the Fed minutes are released. The Fed minutes are ridiculous because it's something that happened 2 weeks ago, and a tremendous number of economic numbers have been reported, and it's a backward-looking number, but usually the market goes up when they announce it. But today, the reverse course, I guess the Fed wanted, they want to look good to the new administration. Hopefully, they won't all be fired.
Speaking of the new administration, what do you think of Janet Yellen? Is she going to raise rates anytime soon?
I call her. No, she won't raise rates. She'll constantly stimulate the economy, and she'll spend with abandon. The Bureau of Labor, which publishes the employment numbers, has traditionally been a home for the progressives. Ever since President Nixon, they've been trying to clean out the progressives from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And it used to have as its head a woman who sent her kids to Camp Kinsella. You know, Camp Kinsella, you probably don't know, but
No.
it's it's a Russian camp. They sing the Russian anthem at the what is the Russian national anthem? What's it called?
The Soviet Union anthem
Yeah,
of the
Soviet.
oh, what
Anyway,
it's called.
she's she sent her kids to the most progressive camp in the United States. It's only really it's. I mean, they're very proud of the fact that half of the people who go there are communists. And they espouse communism. Anyway, Janet Yellen is a good buddy of the former head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. She spoke her at her testimonial, and she is progressive above all, and she'll do whatever she can to help the wokes in their activity. Our only hope, the only hope now is that things will be so bad in the next 2 years that eventually things will crumble. And when they crumble, the R's will be able to come back. But a lot of the Trump supporters, the conservatives, were saying that the Republicans will never win another election because there'll be states added, there'll be unions that are receiving handouts, and the states will be that are near bankruptcy will be bailed out. Pensions will continue to go through the roof.
Right. How do you win an election if the other party offers you free money and the other party doesn't? Most people gonna vote for the free money. Why wouldn't they?
Well, that brings me to another point that Galton always made, that people would rather be prostrate and helpless. Say it's very easy to go into slavery, he would always say, and that
Indeed.
the public has a herd mentality. He would compare them to oxen. So he was a great traveler, Galton, in addition to being the main contributor to statistics, having invented cross tabulations and correlation and regression. But during his geographic travels, the main problem he had was oxen had to carry all the supplies, and you couldn't find an oxen that would lead the herd. They all wanted to stay in the middle. So the main problem he had was finding a leader. And he said that the vox populi has a common lineage with the oxen. They certainly act that way. And for that reason, by the way, he said that you should always use medians in your statistics rather than means, because you.
Average.
In any case, there's a herd mentality to the popularity, and I think that's very important. That's probably the most important thing. That was the reason that Trump lost is because there was a herd mentality among the popularity, and they were turned off by his aggrandizement and his trying to his self-importance, and they all and his trying to overturn the election, and he turned the populace against him. And in addition to all those other things that would have won for him, he did it himself. He lost it himself. Okay, now what about tomorrow? How's the
What about gold? The gold sell off today?
Yes, I saw it. I
Do
saw
you
it
think
very
it's a temporary? Is gold a buy? Given the inflation outlook and
as we said yesterday, the markets that are going up, the most are the ones to buy from an expectation standpoint. Crypto has gone up about 10 days in a row. It's gone up about
over
75% in the last month. And that's the one. This reminds me when I got into the market, gold went, this was was older than many years before you were born. I was trading gold and it went from 200 to 1,000 straight up. And silver went from $5 to $50 straight without any declines. And that's like crypto right now. As I said, the more woke the culture is, the more inflationary it is, the better for crypto. Now, as for gold, it's like old. For people who aren't with the current culture, and I would say that talking about crypto going from its current level of 35,000 to 250,000, that's not that crazy.
No, it's absolutely insane. It's totally crazy. But
yeah, well,
at least gold has some use in
Mr. Gillespie and Mr. Aiken and Roy Niederhoffer, who are the three experts on crypto that I know, they're all very bullish. My brother Roy was talking about crypto going up to 100,000, 200,000 when it was 3,000. He bought it when it was $1. He bought crypto when it was $1, and they're the experts on it, and I certainly wouldn't go against them. And gold will be its traditional self. It will always buy a suit of clothes. Silver will always buy a shirt. But it's for old fogies, not a dynamic part of the new economy. Certainly not as. But I notice even gold was down to the 1900 level today. It hit 1902. But sure enough, when Jay Powell said that the economy is very strong, he didn't have to hurt Trump anymore. The contagion of from the swamp was lifted. He had the vaccine, which was that Trump lost. And as soon as he said that, gold went up from 1902 to 1930. It came back almost half of the amount that it had declined. I noticed that the European markets were very strong. Crude is at an all-time, it's at a 6-month high. Dollars at a new low. We're in a very inflationary scenario. Eventually, we're going to get some inflation numbers, and then we're really going to see a spike in interest rates as to how high interest rates have to go before they start dragging the stock market down. I don't know, but today was not a positive day in terms of what we're going to see in the next few years. And I still say the Democrats were told to hold their fire, not to riot and protest, not to demand any major. We don't want to see Bernie as the Secretary of Labor or AOL.
I don't think Bernie has a chance. He's too white and too male. Biden's cabinet reserved positions are reserved for female, transgender, and people of color. So Bernie has no chance.
A cancel culture. That's another thing. The cancel culture was stopped. All that was ruined today by the Trump rally.
Yeah, I think it was inevitable in a way. I think Trump just sped up the progress. If not this election cycle, then the next, it seems like there was some sort of inevitability.
That's right. It was all inevitable, and the market was going to do what it was going to do, as John Markman said about Mr. Ian. Although we had the wrong reasons yesterday, we gave some very good advice. You could have made as much money today as normal people would make for the next 2 years by buying the stock market and selling the bonds. But I did something that I've been told not to do, and I found always is wrong. I told all the members of my family to get out of the market today because conditions look very detrimental to me. They don't listen to me. They all say, "Well, I thought you said buy and hold."
Did Victoria sell Tesla yet?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Only a third of her holdings.
Still.
But still,
she has popped the bubble. It's a down day for Tesla tomorrow.
Well, she had about 1,000%. She's had it for 5 or 6 years. Anyway, they're all buy and hold, stick to buy and hold people, and I'm a prophet without honor in my own home.
Well, you told your family.
What do you see for tomorrow? You're the only person who listens to me.
I see a down day tomorrow.
You see a down day tomorrow?
Or at least, yeah, it's definitely not an up day. Maybe a range trading day or a down day, not an up day tomorrow.
Strong afternoon, because today was very weak afternoon, and
Mm-hmm.
can if it's going to go down, I think it will go down in the morning. I don't know what it's going to do overnight. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground. Thank
Right.
you very much
A lot of information.
for eliciting 80 years of being in Wall Street, all the anecdotes, all the great men that I've come in contact with, all the books that I've read, and thanks for bringing them out today and other days. Eventually, we'll get our we'll get our blog so that people realize that between us we're the perfect pair to uncover all the market mysteries, and the listeners will realize that it's the best thing that they could bite into in terms of understand the major forces that affect the market. We'll have our day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. Good night. See you tomorrow.
Okay.